Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dive into the creepiest true stories from around the web. Today, we're talking about 3 chilling lockdown stories that'll make you double-check your doors, even if you're just stuck at home. These are real accounts from people who faced the unexplainable during those eerie, quiet months when the world shut down. So grab a blanket, maybe leave a light on, and let's get into it. First up, we have a story from a guy named Ethan, who posted this on a forum back in 2020. Ethan lived alone in a small apartment in a mid-sized city. When lockdown hit, his building got quieter than usual. Most of his neighbors were either working from home or had left to stay with family. He said the silence was almost deafening, especially at night. Ethan worked remotely, so he was home all the time, and he started noticing little things out of place. A glass he swore he left in the sink would be on the counter. His TV remote kept ending up on the coffee table when he was sure he left it on the couch. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe he was just distracted, right? Cabin fever was real, but then it got weirder. One night, he was up late working, and he heard what sounded like footsteps in the hallway outside his door. Not loud, just soft, deliberate steps, like someone pacing. He figured it was a neighbor, but when he checked the peephole, the hall was empty. No one. He didn't think much of it until it happened again the next night, and the night after that. Same time, around 2 a.m., always those slow, steady steps. Ethan started keeping his door locked even during the day, which he'd never done before. Then came the night that freaked him out for good. He was in bed, half asleep, when he heard the footsteps again, but this time, they didn't stop at the hallway. He swore he heard them inside his apartment, moving from the living room toward his bedroom door. His heart was pounding, but he couldn't move, just frozen, listening. The steps got closer, then stopped right outside his door. He waited for what felt like hours, but nothing happened. No door opened, no sound, just silence. When he finally worked up the nerve to check, no one was there. Nothing was out of place, except one thing. A single shoe print in the middle of his living room floor, like someone had stepped in something wet. He lived alone. No one had been in his apartment for weeks. Ethan said he didn't sleep for days after that. He even set up a cheap security camera, but it never caught anything. The footsteps stopped after a couple of weeks, but he said he never felt alone in that apartment again. He moved out as soon as he could afford to. Creepy, right? Let's move on to story number 2, this one from a woman named Sarah, who shared her experience on a subreddit dedicated to paranormal stuff. Sarah was living with her parents in a rural area when lockdown started. Their house was old, built in the early 1900s, and it had always given her the creeps, but she'd gotten used to it growing up. With everyone stuck at home, though, things started feeling off. Sarah's dad was always working in his home office, and her mom was busy gardening or cooking, so Sarah spent a lot of time in her room, scrolling through her phone or watching shows. She started hearing noises during the day, little taps, like someone knocking lightly on the walls. At first, she thought it was the house settling, or maybe her parents moving stuff around. But the taps kept happening, always in sets of 3, and always when she was alone in a room. She asked her parents if they heard anything, but they said no, the house was just old. Things escalated when Sarah started noticing shadows. Not like clear human shapes, but these fleeting dark blurs at the edge of her vision. She'd turn, and nothing would be there. One afternoon, she was in the kitchen grabbing a snack, and she saw it again. A shadow moving across the doorway to the dining room. She froze, thinking maybe her dad was home early, but when she called out, no one answered. She checked the whole house. Her mom was outside, her dad was still at his desk, and no one else was there. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept her light on and her door cracked open, just enough to see into the hall. Around midnight, she heard the taps again, louder this time, coming from the wall right behind her bed. Tap, tap, tap. She sat up, heart racing, and that's when she saw it. A shadow, darker than the rest of the room, standing at the foot of her bed. It wasn't moving, just there, like it was watching her. She screamed, and her parents came running, but by the time they got there, it was gone. Her dad said she was stressed, maybe imagining things because of lockdown, but Sarah knew what she saw. After that, she refused to sleep in her room. She set up a cot in the living room, but even then, she'd wake up to those 3 taps, always at the same time. When lockdown eased up, Sarah moved out to stay with a friend. She hasn't been back to that house since. Okay, one more story, and this one's a doozy. This comes from a guy named Marcus who emailed a paranormal podcast about what happened to him during lockdown. Marcus was a delivery driver, one of the few people still out and about when everything shut down. He lived in a duplex in a quiet neighborhood, sharing a wall with an older lady named Mrs. Carter. She was nice but kept to herself, and Marcus would sometimes check on her, bring her groceries, that kind of thing. During lockdown, he noticed she wasn't answering her door anymore. He figured she was just being extra cautious, but after a week of no response, he got worried. He knocked, called her name, even tried her phone, but nothing. He didn't want to overstep, so he left it alone, assuming she had family checking in. Around the same time, Marcus started hearing noises from her side of the duplex. Low murmurs, like someone talking, but too soft to make out words. He thought maybe she had a radio on or a visitor, but it was constant, every night, starting around 10 p.m. and going until dawn. He'd press his ear to the wall, but he could never quite catch what was being said. It was just this steady, droning hum of voices. One night, he got home late from a shift, exhausted, and crashed on his couch. He woke up to the sound of scratching, not like a pet, but slow, deliberate, coming from the shared wall. He sat there listening and realized it wasn't random. It was rhythmic, like someone was carving something. He banged on the wall, half annoyed, half curious, and the scratching stopped. But then the voices started, louder than ever, and this time, he could almost make out his name. Marcus. Marcus. He freaked out, grabbed his keys, and slept in his car that night. The next day, he called the cops for a welfare check on Mrs. Carter. They found her door unlocked, her house empty. No sign of her, no note, nothing disturbed. Her car was still in the driveway, her purse on the counter. The weirdest part. The wall on her side, the one they shared, was covered in scratches, deep, uneven marks, like someone had dragged a knife across it for hours. The cops couldn't explain it. They filed a missing person report, but Marcus said they didn't seem too hopeful. He moved out a month later, but he still wonders what happened to her, and what was on the other side of that wall. And that's it for today's creepy lockdown stories. Stay safe out there, and maybe don't listen to this one alone at night.